Hey, everybody. Welcome to our second podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Mary.
I'm Annie.
And we are,
yes, let's do that together.
Oh, we're doing that together? Okay. Let's try one more time then. We are the Adoption Squad.
Yay.
We can try that every episode, and we'll probably never be able to say it together, but
exactly. And
hey,
nobody cares.
That's right. E for effort.
Yeah.
So right. If this is the first time you are joining us, we are absolutely welcoming everyone and hoping that our stories can serve as an example to others, and also let people who haven't been through an adoption search know what to expect.
Right, which is the unexpected, but being prepared for acceptance, rejection, twists and turns is very important to your own mental health. So.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to quickly touch upon last week. And there I did it again. I played it back and went, do I really say the word that much? Well, clearly I do. And that's something I think that we do when we're fumbling for words or trying to just be careful. We are just trying to conceal our identities as well as the identities of those people involved in our stories. So if it becomes annoying, I'm very sorry. I will try to get better at choosing my words. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think I said one, maybe two sentences that didn't have the word in it. But just to go back to last week, we did pose a question. Do you remember what that question was, Annie?
I do remember what that question was. Would you like to say what that question was?
So the question was, what is the number one question that adoptees typically face when they start to discuss their adoption?
Right.
And that is, what is it?
That number one question is, when did you find out you were adopted?
Right. So what was that for you?
So, when did I find out I was adopted?
Yes.
I always knew because, as will become clear, my adoptive parents, there were a lot of issues. However, the one thing I give them huge props for is that I always knew I was adopted. It wasn't this big shocking moment. It was part of my fabric. I must have been told from the minute I walked into I didn't walk in their house, but the minute I arrived in their house that I was an adopted child. And somehow that works really well, that it's just part of the fabric of your existence. It's not a surprise later on. Your world doesn't get rocked. It's just part of what is. And that, I think, was a little more rare back in the 1960s when I was adopted. It was sometimes more secretive. But I give them huge props for just making that part of my consciousness without being shocked.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same answer. I don't really remember not knowing, and I don't think it was ever sprung upon me. It was always just known to me that my sister and I were both adopted and that my brothers were natural born children.
Yeah.
And, it never seemed any different to me. I think the only time it started to seem a little different was when I started to attend grade school, because the parents that would show up for parent-teacher conferences and all those things that we had, it was like an evening open house maybe. My parents were part of that, and some of the other kids actually thought they were my grandparents.
Oh, right. And that was your story is a little different from mine. That I was adopted as an infant because my parents couldn't have children or didn't think they could have children.
Mhm.
But you're now, why did your parents move forward with adoption for you, Mary?
So my brothers were natural born, and after raising them for one 16 years older, the other's 13 years older. After raising the boys, I think my adoptive mother just said, hey, I always wanted a girl, but I don't really want to become pregnant again and put my body through that again.
Right.
So she sought out adoption as an option, and then was able to adopt my sister, who's about 3.5 years older than I am, and then later on adopted me as well.
Right.
So two natural born, two adopted.
All
So
right.
yeah,
And
but
then, like, let's talk about why it even comes up that we're
mhm.
adopted. People just swim through life and nobody questions that their parents are their parents. But somehow it becomes something you eventually have to admit to
Mhm.
people. You're just kind of meeting a new friend at school. This is what I recall, elementary school.
Mm.
You're getting to know people, and there's this awkward moment where you feel like, well, I kind of have to tell them that I'm adopted. It's the weirdest thing. Like you just feel like, I got to admit this now. Yeah, I'm adopted.
How did it come up is, well, I almost felt like it was, I wanted to tell people.
Oh, okay.
I guess I was told that I was chosen, and that that was a special thing. But at the same time, because so many people had said, "Oh, your grandparents showed up, how nice." Well, I kind of had to set the record straight. No. And I would get very pissy about that too.
Oh,
Um, I
of your parents?
I kind of almost wanted to go, fuck you, I'm adopted.
Yeah.
Like, there's something great about us. We are part of this whole group of people that you'll never understand, but yet I welcome your questions. Ask me whatever you want. And I wanted to talk about it because I didn't feel any different in my household. I guess I was lucky that I didn't feel different from my natural born siblings. And so I talked about it all the time. People probably thought, shut up.
You know what's funny as we're talking about this, it didn't occur to me until just now. I always felt like, well, I've got to admit this. And then later in life, I'm like, oh, no, let me explain. I'm adopted. I'm
Yeah.
not like these people. With all due respect to adopted parents out there, everybody's situation is different. But man, it was nice to have that out. Like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
like
did you bring it up like I did, or are you not a weirdo like me?
I don't think I was a weirdo like you.
Not many people are. So,
I just felt like it was this thing that if we're going to become friends, you need to know this about me. I don't want there to be any secrets.
right.
It's a funny thing to feel compelled to start talking about. And then because it was the 60s, there were a lot of adopted kids.
Mhm.
There were a fair amount. There were two girls down the street from me. They had the same mom. Another a couple adopted the two of them together. Um, and I always knew that about them. And the funny thing is we never really talked about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, as adopted kids, we just kind of, I don't know, pretended that everything's fine. Yeah, we're good. We're just like everybody else.
So you were adopted in the early 60s, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So mine was about 10 years later, about the same scenario. We were both infants, but I think we're both from these neighborhoods where there was just a wave of adopted kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the 60s and 70s, this was not uncommon. It was very prevalent in my neighborhood, and we all played sports together, and the families were definitely mixed with natural born and adopted.
Right.
And honestly, over the years, just like you and I met and connected this way,
Yeah.
I've met so many other people in workplaces or, in my travels or what have you, where this comes up and we all just kind of feel that connection. And that's why we decided to start this and be able to talk about it. And
Well, yeah, and call it a squad because I mean, I always feel almost a tribe connection. You know, when you're
Mhm.
adopted, there's just certain assumptions that we make about each other, and they're not always true, obviously, like any group. It's not uniform, but there's just a little like understanding, like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did other kids kind of chide you or make fun of you in any way? And
Absolutely not. No,
no? Okay.
kids did my adopted siblings.
Hmm.
Yeah, they would tell me to go back to where I came from when they
Ooh.
were angry about something. Yep, that was an ugly moment, and it happened fairly frequently. And and my retort was always like, "Well, I was the chosen one,"
So
you
you were
know.
you were the only adopted child in your household,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you have how many
And
other siblings that you grew up with?
their fertility goddess, right? They get me in the house, and this is very common too. People who think they can't have children try for years. I think my adopted parents tried for 7 years and then finally adopted. And I get in the house and they get pregnant like almost immediately with twins. So
Okay.
twin sisters that are not that much younger than me, that are their natural children. And then they had another period of time where they couldn't get pregnant for years. And I have a brother who's 6 years younger than me, six
Okay.
years younger than me. Yeah.
So you're the oldest in your family line.
Yeah. But oh, we had foster kids too.
Oh,
A couple of foster children who were almost like, I think they were like 10 when I was brought into the house. So when I was, oh gosh, I can't even think about how old they were. Or even, that's where my timeline gets fuzzy. I'm like, how long were they with us? Because I was just a little kid.
hmm.
And then they moved out. Um, but, I know that my adopted parents are still in touch with these foster kids. It was a really crazy, crazy story. But so I was like middle child, then I became oldest child.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah. So you
Um,
were the youngest, right?
yes, and remain so even in the biological family line, from what I understand. But that will all be uncovered as we keep meeting on a weekly basis. But it's funny you brought up other children in the household. We had some foreign exchange students.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'd forgotten that small detail until you said that. And when I was growing up, and my parents would make me say my prayers at night,
Yeah.
I always included these two names, but I didn't remember who these people were.
Oh, wow.
And they, their names, I don't know if this is revealing too much because I'm really trying to keep things very anonymous, but they were definitely foreign names.
Uh-huh.
One is synonymous with the name DiCaprio.
Okay.
The other, Andres is his name, and I believe he resides still in South America with
Yeah.
his lovely wife. And we are actually friends on a social media site, but I don't really go there anymore. And I know he's still living, and